This is your brother, Omawale Africa. Y'all get ready for my brand new podcast, Race, Manhood, and Power, available on all streaming platforms.
Yeah. Peace, African. You let our family know what's really going on out here and what we need to do. That time is upon us. It's the time of decision.
Dear revolution, you eliminate confusion. And my ancestors said you might be the solution. Help us get free so we can build the institutions. Currently we lose and see the children reproducing. They looking up the rappers, drug dealers, and the crackers. Just like another brother, ain't no scrapping, they just clap them. This cracker want it all. He don't do too well with fractions. I subtract him from the planet when I hit him with the magnum. They wrote our history in stone, but did they ever fathom black women turning dyke, black men turning faggot?
Black manhood is gone.
Disappeared like magic. Romali Graham, Trayvon Martin, we died tragic. Brothers getting shot for a pair of Jordans. How we getting free when getting fresh seeming more important? Brothers in Chicago kill each other over nothing. Brothers in the Congo kill each other over nothing. Brothers in New York kill each other over nothing. When it's time to kill this cracker, none of y'all gon' push the button. Too busy playing Xbox, too busy getting blunted. All y'all running when the enemy's confronted. We dying by the thousands, but we fighting by the hundreds. Freedom, there's a small amount of us who really want it. Haunted by the ghost of Leopold, misery is cold. Look a man in his eye, you can see his soul. Is he built for the battlefield? Go out and kill a devil when he rap or tattletale? I love the smell when the bullet come out the shell. No mercy for my enemies, this devil could rot in hell. If you supposed to be conscious,
prepare for the combat.
You wanna talk metaphysics
and all that nonsense.
Big words with no content.
Throw them Bobby Hemmett DVDs in the garbage.
Caution to the brother who was all about flossing. We all pay the cost for this world that you lost in. If you the dawn like you singing in your songs, then give jobs to brothers in the hood.
Mr. Boss Man.
You look soft, taking flip-flops off.
Well,
how you gon' hold it down
when shit pops off?
Now you laying on the ground with your lip popped off.
For a brother like
myself,
me,
smack your lip gloss off. You claim you want freedom from this European.
You don't.
Just because you vegan
doesn't make you
a
a
believer. You better get a heater and be working on your EY.
You don't become a freedom fighter cause you eat quinoa.
Standing still, letting time just breeze by. Disconnect yourself from the roots, then the trees die. Ain't no revolution if we don't create the culture. Just a bunch of people yelling, standing still like sculptures. But if every brother grabbed a 9 and started shooting up crackers, that'll put them in line. But if every brother grabbed a 9 and started shooting up crackers, that'll put him in line. Yeah.
The revolution. That's the solution. Blah. Omani, it's my guy.
I would like to make a few comments concerning the difference between the Black Revolution and the Negro Revolution. There's a difference. Are they both the same? And if they're not, what is the difference? What is the difference between a Black Revolution and a Negro Revolution? First, what is a revolution? Sometimes I'm inclined to believe that many of our people are using this word revolution loosely.
That was Their Revolution by my brother Bomani from the Vanguard United Front off their Lumumba's Revenge project. One of my favorite Vanguard United Front projects. So shout out to brother Bomani. That track right there gets heavy replay, especially when I'm out getting the miles in. So bro, I definitely appreciate you for that. I mean, it speaks to my spirit. But with that being said, family, welcome to the. Hold on 1 second. Oh. My bad. I had to put on my Professor Omawale's real quick. I mean, let me get in my mode. All right, cool. With that being said, family, welcome to the Race, Manhood, and Power podcast. Welcome to the Prelude to the Race, Manhood, and Power podcast, recorded live on location at the African War College, your temporary way station for African liberators. I'm your host and correspondent, Professor Omawale, and you can find me online at omawaleafrica.com and across all social media at Omawale Africa. Here at the African War College, when we see a fellow African, we greet each other using the word Abibi Fahudie, which means Black liberation in the Tree language spoken by the people of Ghana. And while we recognize that it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men, the Race, Manhood, and Power podcast is unapologetic in our assignment to restore manhood in our community, for there is no path to Black liberation that does not include the resurrection of Black men. So, family, tonight, this isn't even an official part of the podcast. This is the prelude to the podcast. And the reason why I wanted to record this episode before I even dropped an episode of the podcast was because I feel that it's definitely necessary to level set so that we are all on the same page, right? When we're talking about race, manhood, and power, I don't want anybody making any assumptions, right? Because oftentimes what occurs is when we're speaking about manhood, people confuse the conversation with the conversation on masculinity. And I'm not talking about masculinity. Manhood and masculinity are two very different things, and they are not synonymous. So, what I did just very quickly is I threw together a quick presentation. This is my opening salvo, if you will. So I put together just a really quick presentation so that I can level set. And the name of this presentation is the 12-point buck theory of Black male development, addressing the global crises in African manhood. The presentation is only 12 slides. I'm going to get through it very quickly. So if you're a member of my listening audience, I'm such a great presenter that you won't even know that I'm presenting. You'll think that I'm actually just speaking to you the entire time. But with this being the prelude to my podcast, which will be airing on Monday, August the 30th at 8:30 p.m. on the Omawale Africa YouTube channel. It'll be airing every Monday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Omawale Africa YouTube channel. I wanted to just take a moment to introduce myself. I don't want to say properly introduce the podcast, but I would like to introduce an idea that is going to be instrumental to the way in which we engage the discussion around manhood on the podcast. And of course, that idea is the 12-point buck theory. So I'm going to get into that. I'm going to explain 12-point buck. Well, what is a buck and all of that good stuff. I'll make sure that we're all pretty much on the same page. I promise I won't be leaving anybody behind. I'm in my George Bush bag. See, sometimes I get in my Bush bag when I say if I refuse to pull out, then we got more children running around. I'm talking about my wife. We got the last child. I don't think that I'm not even supposed to be going there. Excuse me. When I get in my George Bush bag, I mean like no child left behind. So here at the African War College, we will not be leaving any Africans behind. All right. So quick, Abibi Fahudie. All right. So again, the 12-point buck theory of Black male development. Why is this instrumental? I am a follower and a student of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And when Garvey set it in his mind that he wanted to do work to empower and uplift and restore and rebuild African humanity, to restore dignity to the African race, the first thing that he said that he needed to do was to create a media outlet. And during Garvey's time, that media outlet was the Negro world. During our time, many of us are not reading newspapers, so social media becomes the means by which we go ham. And by ham, I mean how we win the hearts, the attention, and the minds of our people. So naturally, I like to use my social media platform as an extension of the work that I do in the community and the work that I do for our people. And I think that it's very important to make that distinction that it is an extension because Social media is not the work. The podcast is not the work. It is an extension of the work, and it's a means by which we share messaging and communicate and let folks know what we're working on. It's a way that we do public analyses, we teach, we inform, we educate, we entertain, like all those things that are necessary to reach and connect with our people. So, the Race, Manhood, and Power podcast for me helps me to facilitate the work that I do with Cobra Calisthenics. To an extent, it helps to support the work that I do with Afrocentricity International. But the Cobra Calisthenics Initiative is something that I developed that is explicitly and unapologetically focused on the development and restoration of Black manhood. Focusing on character, one of the most important attributes, right, of building man, right? Oftentimes we focus on mind, body, spirit, but we leave out the character. And without the character, manhood and the nation has nothing to rest on. You can't have men with poor character, right? So that's a weakness that we certainly need to fix. And as you'll see, this whole 12-point buck theory, right at the end of the presentation, I'll cover what I refer to as my 12 points of restoration, right? And these are areas of man, right, or areas of a male that can be cultivated and worked on so that you can be developed to your highest standard as a man and be of service to the community, right? But it all starts with strong character. So let me get into this. My opening salvo, 12-point buck theory of black male development, addressing the global crisis in African manhood, right? So what is a buck? If you're not from, I guess, Pennsylvania or somewhere where deers like roam free, a buck is a deer. It's a male deer. It's very virile, very strong. And as African people who were enslaved in this country, uh, the enslavers used to refer to us as bucks, right? That's a strong young buck right there. You know what I mean? We should bed him with that winch over there and produce, more slaves, right? So the way in which this nation deals with bucks, right? Because the deer is somewhat of a I'm about to make up a word, a tempestuous. That's not even a word, but the deer is somewhat of an unwanted uh, entity. Well, maybe not unwanted, right? Because in the case of black men, yes, we're unwanted. But the thing with the deer is it threatens the ecosystem if it overpopulates. So on an annual basis here in the United States, there's what's referred to as a culling, right? Culling, where deers are systematically hunted so that the population of deer can remain at an acceptably low level that does not disturb the ecosystem, right? And the reason why a 12-point buck is so uncommon, but also is such a prize kill, is because due to the fact that deers are systematically hunted and killed, there are not many male deers that get to fully develop into a 12-point buck. So when a hunter kills a 12-point buck, it becomes like a moment of celebration. Like, I just killed this rare creature in nature because they're so rare because they are being hunted to extinction. Well, not to extinction, but again, managing the population, right? If we look at the black population over, the past century, it's been effectively managed, stuck at about, flat 11, 12%, maybe at some peaks jump up to 14, but pretty much we're flat and uh, trending downward, especially if you look at this last census, the data that was just released, right? So how does that relate to the black male and the crisis in African manhood, right? Because a fully developed man, in theory, right, would be a 12-point buck, right? He would be fully developed in each of these areas or each of these attributes that are essential to manhood, right? So let me move into the presentation and keep it moving. So give me 1 second here, family. I want to start, of course, I said that I am a student of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. So I want to start with a quote from Garvey, and it's on man or manhood. It's from an essay in the Philosophies and Opinions of Marcus Garvey called The Dissertation on Manhood. And this is how he assesses the state of African manhood across the race, not just here in America, not in Jamaica. He isn't calling out any particular ethnic group of African men. He's talking about the race, right? So this is his analysis. He says, as far as the Negro race is concerned, we can find but few real men to measure up to the higher purpose of the creation. And because of this lack of manhood in the race, we have stagnated for centuries and now find ourselves at the foot of the great human ladder. I mean, at this point, we're not even at the ladder. Like we're like, they got they feet on our necks and or they feet on our back ready to kick us off a cliff. Because it's like we keep bending over and walking backwards, and it's like, the state of manhood. And I'm going to get into that when I drop the first episode of this podcast, because again, this podcast is the Race, Manhood, and Power podcast. And one of the big things that we want to do here is eliminate confusion. We want to break through that delusion, and just be unapologetic about development, but also be unapologetic about our reality as subjugated males, as racially subjugated males, right? Because the ultimate goal becomes, if we accept our current reality and we decide that this reality is unacceptable and we desire to be men, then what is it that we need to do to transform ourselves from racially subjugated males into sovereign men, right? How do we unleash or tap into that sovereign man within, right? So that's what really this podcast is all about. So it was so necessary to put together this prelude, right? Before we jump into episode 1 and I start using terms and I'm talking about 12-point bucks and points of restoration, and people are like, what the hell is Professor Omawale talking about? I thought this was an entry-level remedial class on manhood. I didn't expect him to be teaching. Like, I feel like I need to be breaking a book to class. Like, this dude talking all this manhood babble and and putting me to sleep. I just want to be entertained. Where the big booties at? So, let me stop, bro. Let me stop. All right, so I just gave y'all the quote from Garvey. It was just important that we start there. So, just another quick point of clarification, right? Because we're setting the table, right? Dr. Mazama, the leader of Afrocentricity International, she always says that clarity, right, is what we have to push for, right? We have to eliminate confusion. We have to help our people to see the reality crystal clear. Because if your vision or your lens is foggy, then the analysis that you develop based upon what you see just may not be accurate. And in situations of war or in situations of precision warfare, you need to be precise. And you're not going to be precise if you're confused, if you are using terms inappropriately, or we don't have an agreement on what the terms are or the reality is, right? So I just want to clarify manhood and masculinity. I'm not talking about one when I'm talking about the other. In fact, on this particular podcast, I promise you will likely never hear me. I don't want to say never, but you will very seldom hear me talking about masculinity. And trust me, when I am speaking about masculinity, I'm not using it as a term that is synonymous with manhood, right? Because the two are not synonymous, right? And Baba Baruti actually picks this up in his book, Asafo, A Warrior's Guide to Manhood. He speaks on it. He says, European cultural politics have increasingly sought to distort the relationship of power to manhood, confusing these discussions with irrelevant and distracting questions of what is meant by maleness or masculinity, right? So they're sending you on a dummy mission if they talk about masculinity when you should be talking about manhood. And these things are not the same thing. So what I like to do, like, as a teacher, right? Professor Omawale, we're in the War College. So how does Professor Omawale define manhood? So I define manhood, and you can use this, or this is the analysis or the definition that we'll be using here at the podcast, and feel free to adopt it for yourself as well. But I define manhood as a system of order, protection, and direction that is expressed through institutions that are capable of meeting the vital needs of a people. Right? I'm going to repeat that. I define manhood as a system of order, protection, and direction that is expressed through institutions that are capable of meeting the vital needs of a people. Right? So if I'm talking about manhood, I'm not talking about any individual man. I'm referring to the conditions of a group of men. Garvey said at the beginning, even Bomani, when we played Dare Revolution, black manhood is gone, right? Because anytime you use the word hood, you're talking about more than one person. So no manhood cannot be expressed through one man or one male. Manhood is expressed through the outward expressions of a group of males. And the most powerful expression is that of institution. We create institutions to govern, to protect, to feed, to clothe. This is what men do. So when you look into the community and you say, well, where are our institutions that we've created to establish order, protection, and direction? They're gone. So as a result, our community is in a state of utter chaos, of misdirection, of no protection. Nobody is protected. Not black men, black women, or black children. Black children are being molested, both male and female. Black children are being killed, both male and female. Black men and women are being killed. There's no protection, so there's literally no manhood. Right? So let's really start there. And as Garvey said, it's in the race, right? If you look to the African continent as some of the managers of the colonies, or who they refer to as presidents, you'll see a president, jumping on a plane to fly over to the UK or to their daddy's house in France to go get medically treated. Why? Because those are boys. They haven't built any institutions to take care of themselves, the vital institution in health, so their people suffer. So if they need to be cared for, they go home to daddy. Daddy, can I use your hospital, please? Right? Because those males have not taken on the responsibility of what it means to be a man. And it's for a clear reason, right? When somebody tells you to man up, I don't think that people realize what they're asking. And I think subconsciously a lot of males understand the danger of what it means to be a man. Because it's like, whoa, man up. Under the system of white supremacy, that should get you killed. Because it's like under the system, there's not going to be any competing male, right? There's one man, the so-called alpha, which is why I'm going to do an episode on the podcast called The Myth of the Black Male Alpha. Because people use the term all the time. And I'm like, man, you have no idea of the irony of referring to yourself as an alpha or a beta. I'm not going to go there right now. Like I said, this is an educational podcast, part entertainment, some information, but I promise you, in the African War College, we're going to get to it. All right, so let's keep moving here, family. The crisis in African manhood. One of the first things that we have to understand, right, when we look at the present crises that we see playing out in our communities, the crises that we see is a reflection of the crises in African manhood, right? For me, manhood is the root, and everything else is a fruit that grows from a corrupted tree. If manhood has been distorted or displaced or disrupted, that's reflected in the community. It's one of the reasons why I can't get behind the movement of black men that are placing most of their focus on what black women need to do. Because, and this is my bro Frank, he gave me this analogy. He said that black women are like the moon. All they do is reflect the light of the sun. So with black men, it's like your manhood or her womanhood is a reflection of your manhood. So if black womanhood or black women are out of order, it's because the black man is out of order. The black man has not stepped into his place to shoulder the weight or the burden of manhood. And if the males in the community are not reared for an adulthood where they can shoulder the weight, right, of manhood, that weight still has to be borne in the community. And it becomes a situation where the women are bearing the weight of manhood, they're bearing the weight of parenthood, of motherhood. And it's like you're looking at her and she's like juggling 10 tasks and responsibilities, a portion of which you should be taken off of her plate. And you're telling her you're doing it wrong. And the kids are suffering. It's like, no, she's carrying you because now you're dead weight because you're not carrying the weight of manhood. So she's carrying you and your responsibility. right? So of course the sisters are going to be out of order. Of course the kids are going to be out of order because we as men are not in order. So that's important. But again, nobody's to blame here. I'm not blaming you, black man. What I'm trying to do right now is put things back in order, right? That's the purpose of the Race, Manhood, and Power podcast. And it would help us to do that if we better understood our origin within this particular, the Ma'afa, right? Our experience with European enslavement and colonization and how black men have been recasted to play roles other than men within this new world reality that white males have created for themselves and their progeny. And in this new reality, you can play the slave, you can play. I'll get into all of that. I'm not. I want to stay on task. If you've been in one of my lectures before when I lecture in public, y'all know that I can go on a tangent. I'll be done hit you with a John Henry Clark lecture. Like I done went off and gave you 2 lectures and came back and said, "All right, now let's get started." You know what I mean? So let me stay on task. We need discipline, right? That's an attribute of manhood, to be disciplined, right? Because that's a part of your character. Okay, so let's deal with the origin, right? Black men. Okay, now we know that there were some males who, circumnavigated the planet, and black men had, come to America and visited here, right? With, Dr. Ivan Van Sertimer. Big rest in peace to one of his brothers and I think students, Dr. Renoko Rashidi. So when I thought of Ivan Van Sertimer, the first image that came to my mind is the image when he was a young man, and there's a young Renoko Rashidi and 2 other giants in the African-centered or Afrocentric or Black Studies movement. So rest in peace to Dr. Renoko Rashidi, a warrior, a true Garveyite. And again, apologies, I'm going off on a task here. Let me get back. Only reason why I went off on a tangent is due to the fact that I know when this podcast release or this prelude releases, people are going to say, well, Omawale, not all of us came here on the slave ship. Not all of us is Africans. Some of us is indigeneity because we the Moors and stuff and we've been here, right? So I know I'm going to get that. So I'm trying to create, I'm trying to give an allowance for the fact that, yes, we don't know to what extent, we don't know the amount, but we do know from historical evidence, what the evidence bears out is that there were Africans who did travel here from West Africa prior to Columbus arriving here. We do know that. But what I'm talking about, right, when I'm talking about the origin situation, I'm speaking to right now is when black men were brought to these shores, they were brought here as an input into a slave labor economy. We were brought here to build wealth for other men. We were not brought here to be developed or to be socialized into happy or fully functioning or healthy or developed men. It's not what we were brought here for. It was like kill the mind, keep the body. In fact, we're going to drill this into your mind because you can be 84 or you can be 4. You're still boy, right? And that has never changed. And so what I want to speak, so when I'm talking to the origins, I want to speak really quick. Ben Franklin, the enlightened white liberal, wrote an essay in 1751. And that essay was called The Observations Concerning the Increase of Mankind, Peopling of Countries, etc. So you know where I'm going with this, right? When we start talking about populations and population sizes, there's still lots of white liberals where that is their chief concern. There are too many Negroes. Look at all those Negroes in Africa. Let's get those jabs over there. Quick, hurry. Those Negroes are growing. It's the youngest population on the planet. What are we going to do, Bill? Well, I don't know, Elon. We have to do something because there's no employment. There's all those males over there. And if they happen to get discontent, it could be a dangerous situation. I know what we can do. Hey, DeVito, you want to be a rapper? You want to be famous? Let's bring some entertainers over there. Keep those Negroes entertained. Let's have the rappers flaunt wealth so that the poor and starving can say, all I have to do to live like that is become a rapper. Now everybody is focused on entertaining. Matter of fact, let's send Obama over there with the NBA the same way the British went over there with soccer. Let's take sports. Keep these Negroes entertained. Okay, I digress. I'm sorry. I mean, listen, man, sometimes I dip in and out of my Denzel bag. I get a little bit bipolar over here. So I apologize. Let me get back on topic. We were talking about this. Okay, I can't say the C word. Y'all like saltine crackers? Yeah, they good. I like them in my soup. But we were talking about Benjamin Franklin and his observations concerning the increase of mankind and peopling of countries. That's what we was talking about. And this is what old Ben Franklin wrote, right? And this has been their derived solution to the Negro problem for a very long time. So first he asked this question to his fellow white man. He says, why increase the sons of Africa by planting them here in America, where we have so fair an opportunity by excluding all blacks and tawnies of increasing the lovely white and red race? Hold on. Hold on. Right? Why? Is it what he asked, right? All right, thank you for laughing at my corny jokes, right? So he says, okay, here's the solution to the problem. He says, people increase in proportion to the number of marriages. And the number of marriages is greater in proportion to the ease and convenience of supporting a family. So, if these Negroes can't support a family, we keep them systematically underemployed, they become useless, they go away, their numbers drop. And by the way, my guy Thomas Jefferson, he just came up with an equation, and let me tell you about this dope shit. He has a mathematical equation that literally says, if me, a white man, sleeps with my negress, and then my son sleeps with my negress's baby, not my son, because that's incest, although they are some incestuous motherfuckers. But, and then another white man sleeps with my negress's baby, and then another white man sleep with that negress's baby. By the time that baby is 3 generations gone, guess what? All the Negro blood is gone. Yo, I'm dead serious. They literally came up with this equation. Like, they were serious. They're like, listen, the economy is fitting to industrialize. If we look over to the UK, they already have an industrial economy. Now, here in America, we can't have a situation where you have slave labor and then you have wage labor, because one part of the country that's built on slave labor is going to get all the wealth, and then the white man won't be able to find a job and be employed because he can't compete with slave labor. So in order to enter into the new industrial reality, my man, we have to get rid of this slave labor. But after we get rid of the slave labor, like any other good businessman, Ben Franklin wanted to know, how do we dispose of these here assets? We didn't already written them off the books, but how do we get rid of them? I mean, we good Christian folks, it is the Enlightenment era. So therefore, we can't just kill them, putting them in gas chambers and stuff. What do we do? Maybe we'll just starve them out. Keep these Negroes unemployed. Shh. We gonna figure this thing out. We gonna walk them down real slow. And by the time they figure this shit out, these Negroes is gonna be up out of here. We'll do this thing 200 years if it takes. But these Negroes is not gonna plant their damn African seed here in this goddamn white nation. I tell you that. To be American means to be white, and to be African means to be non-American, nigga. All right, listen, yo. I'm in my bag over here. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. Let me keep going, man. I'm sorry. I'm having fun. Hold on. Wrong. I'm hitting the wrong shit. I was looking for the laugh. That's the laugh. Perhaps I should label these a little better. So I'm sorry. Let me keep going. All right. So of course, Ben Franklin comes up with the solution, and so I'm speaking to this because I want us to understand why we were brought here in the first place. We were not brought here to be developed or to be reared into adulthood so that we could occupy spaces within the economy. That is not the reason why we were brought here. We got that part. We good. We still on this 12-point buck theory. Trust me, we ain't moved off it. You thought I moved off the topic, but I didn't move off the topic. I've been on the topic the entire time. So y'all gotta keep up. Keep up. No child left behind. George Bush, right? Let me take my Professor Omawale's off. Right. Listen, family. Let me stop joking. I do want y'all to take me serious though, but I am a little bit of a jokester, so let me keep it going. Some other readings, right? Because I told you that you definitely have to read their stuff because their stuff is certainly replete with their examples. It's well documented in terms of them looking for strategic and humane solutions to the Negro problem. Right? Calling deer is a very humane solution, which is why you ain't got many 12-point bucks running around because hunters are trying to kill them dead boys. But anyway, some other readings that you can definitely check out. Garvey has a great essay. I mean, Garvey has lots of great essays. So if you haven't read The Philosophies and Opinions of Marcus Garvey, he has an essay called The White Man's Solution to the Negro Problem in America, right? That's in there. Sidney Wilhelm, economist in the 1960s, wrote a book called Who Needs the Negro? An excellent book, The Choice, The Issue of Black Survival in America by Samuel Yett. I mean, there's just so much information out there on this already. Like, I mean, I'm pretty sure if you're just getting this information for the first time, then I mean that's cool. I guess you have to start somewhere, and that's why this podcast is just so necessary, and that's why we are working to develop the African War College. Right, it's your temporary way station for African liberators. Right, no liberation without manhood. I tell you that much. Okay. This right here, coming out of the 60s, the United States Congress had commissioned so many goddamn studies to figure out why are these black people so discontented all of a sudden? Before they was just driving Miss Daisy, now they burning down cities, they shooting at them people. They really on some revolutionary stuff. I mean, we just gave Martin all that money to tell him to go out there and lead a march. But it seems as though these revolutionary Negroes in the ghetto that Malcolm was talking about when he told us Malcolm told us, he said, hey, if there is a canister of dynamite in your house and that dynamite is going to explode under certain conditions, then you either have to remove the dynamite or remove the conditions. And well, to remove the conditions would be to end a white nation and throw away white supremacy. So how about we just remove the dynamite? And by dynamite, I mean them black men. Because these Negroes is explosive. So they did lots of studies. One of the studies is called Law and Order Reconsidered. And there's a part in there where they're talking about our development in this nation under the slave system. And by I mean the development of the black male. I mean, what's interesting is the way that they, what's the term I'm looking for here? I always start to, the asymmetric development of the male and the female. Now, mind you, we were both developed for a purpose to be used by white society, right? And our development stopped at whatever that purpose is. But what was interesting about it is during the slave system, black women were allowed to tap into or allowed to express more of their humanness than or adulthood than uh, black men were, right? Because black women raised the kids, they could express disappointment, right? They mothered uh, the plantation. They raised Mass's children, and even the ones that he raped them and they bore, but they also raised Mrs. Ann's children. They were wet nurses for Miss Ann, so they got a chance to see little Jeffrey grow from a baby little son of a slave master to a grown son of a slave master. And little Jeffrey always respected old Mammy as his mama. He remember, them titties and the nursing. Let me stop joking here, but I'm just saying here that black women had the opportunity to express more of their adulthood. Whereas though black men, because of the threat of black manhood, it had to be kept under tight lock and key. So even if you were 80, you were a boy. You weren't expressing no disappointment. You weren't expressing any emotions. Don't you try to look angry. That's an emotion. And that's why Paul Lawrence Dunbar, when he talks about we wear the mask, right? I write about that. I wrote about that, and I have an essay on my Medium page called "America's Dirty Secret: The Fear of Black Manhood and Why We Lynch Bad Niggers." And I talk about the different masks that black men were forced to wear, right? Our face of cooperative submission, you know. And even today, you got so many black men who are willing, not even begrudgingly at this point, to just get on the white man's program. We do what he say. He'll treat us nice. That type of hypergamous manhood is it's disgusting. I mean, I don't want to start casting shame, right? We want to build up here, so I don't want to tear. But you do got to destroy in order to build. So maybe that hypergamous man, not maybe, that hypergamous manhood definitely needs to be destroyed. So we will have a full episode on the Race, Manhood, and Power podcast on hypergamous manhood. So y'all stay tuned for that because we're going to get to that. All right, let me read this here. I refer to what they're speaking here, what they're speaking about here as the malignant development of black males. And by malignant, I mean development that is ultimately lending towards our death or deterioration as a people or as a group of men. So I'll read. It says, "For the blacks who were subjected to slavery, the existing social systems of West Africa were interrupted, and new traumatic ones were imposed. Tribal institutions and customs which prepared blacks to meet their needs and cope as adults in African societies were no longer useful or possible. A new kind of socialization was necessary in order to develop not an adequate, competent participant in adult society, but rather a subhuman, or as Dr. Tommy Curry likes to say, the man not. A subhuman, a dependent creature fully subservient to the master's needs. Children born into the slave system were prepared from birth for a life of subservience. Nurture and physical care came from an adult, not in the interest of a family, kinship group, or tribe, but in the interest of the master. Children were not destined to become elders, chiefs, warriors, or traders, and to hold positions of respect and status within the tribe. Instead, they were to become slaves, and the process of their individual development were distorted by this unnatural end." Right? So I'm talking here about the conditionings of the black male in order to make him a more perfect slave. And then when the slave system ends, the conditioning that we see now of the black male in order to make him accept his cleansing and to participate in his own genocide. Like we're conditioned to kill each other. We're conditioned to hate each other. We're conditioned not to cooperate with one another and to not trust each other. How can you have manhood when the men in the group don't trust each other? How can you have manhood when the men in the group relate to each other as though we are enemies? This is the way that we are conditioned for an unnatural end. That's why I talk about the malignant development of black males. And again, this is their study. It's not mine, but I am a researcher. I am a student of history. So I try to bring these things to the forefront so we can make sense of our present reality. So I want to take a quick break here, and I want to give a few shout outs to the folks who donated, who signed up to be sponsors, who just sent me cash apps. This isn't an official advertisement because this isn't an official episode, but I do want to thank my brother Adrian Mac. I want to thank my sister Zakia. I want to thank my brother Torin. There's a brother from the UK, a young brother, and apologies, I'm forgetting your name. But I tell you what, if you catch this episode, I do want you to be at the live after party when I have what I'm referring to as the Race, Manhood, and Power after party live experience that's going to be immediately following the premiere of episode 1. So I will be able to shout out all the names during that particular situation. But I'm just very thankful, right, for the folks who believed in the vision and saw the need for this podcast. Because I was flat out. I said, yo, I'm trying to do something that addresses the crisis in black manhood. I want to talk about the condition of manhood in a race and what we need to do to build power. And, folks would have been like, I'm not really trying to hear that shit, bro. You know what I mean? But no, folks actually was like, yo, we need that. They recognized that we needed this type of format, and folks support it. And I mean, everything that you see, I mean, aside from the books, because these are old stuff that I've had, but pretty much everything that you see here are like folks, I mean, in the laptop and things like that, but like the podcasting equipment, essentially, the cameras, all those things. So I want to say thank you. A quick round of applause for y'all. Okay, let's get started. Let's check out this Nellie Fuller piece. I put it here for a reason, and y'all about to find out. So I'm sharing this Nellie Fuller clip here because it ties in very well. It dovetails very well to help us better, or to better reinforce the point I'm making when I talk about the malignant development of black males or black men. Because within the system of white supremacy, black males are conditioned to be something other than men. We are not conditioned or socialized or developed for manhood. And because we do not have or control any of our own institutions or control the vital institutions that feed into the one institution that we do have some type of leeway in, that being the black family, we're in really, really bad shape. And this is a reality that we have to look square in the face if we want to do something about it. Like, if we want to live on this planet as men and not as slaves, as leaders and not as subjugated males that do the bidding of a more powerful group of males, then we have to dig down deep within. And it starts with us admitting, right? You have so many black men. It's like, what are you talking about? I'm a man. I ain't no victim. Get out of here with that victim Olympic stuff you talking about. I ain't with none of that stuff. I ain't trying to hear it. I'm willing to admit that I could be wrong, but I ain't trying to hear that victim stuff. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of men operate in a deep sense of delusion. I can imagine their ancestors probably during slavery were like, what are you talking about? I ain't no slave. You see how good I got it around here? Massa sends me to go and build cabinets, and they pay me, and I come back and give Massa the money. And if I build a lot of these here cabinets, Massa even brick me off a piece. In fact, Jeffrey up the road, he did that same thing for 15 years, and eventually Massa let him be free. He got to pay for his freedom, and he bought his wife. Tell me I ain't no goddamn slave. You don't get the hell out of here with that victim mindset. What we got better than Mr. George's plantation? I eats good. I get any negress that I want. I say, Massa, I want to hear that one. And Massa say, go on ahead, and I was about to call his name. Oh shit. Apologies. I'm not here to start trouble. I don't want no smoke. But if you want to smoke, I will be your huckleberry. You know what I'm saying? Like my shoulders is kind of broad. I can carry it if that's what you want. No, all jokes aside, I'm joking. I'm being comedic. I'm poking fun. And leading up to dropping this podcast, I've spent a lot of time on YouTube analyzing the different segments of YouTube, the different schools of thought, and the personalities that stick out. So, you can trust and believe that I'm definitely not coming into the space to be on some rah-rah, like trying to like start conflict and thrive off of conflict. But what I will say is this, that if I am serious about ushering in a project that is unapologetically based upon the restoration of manhood, then certain types of manhood that are being pushed in our community have to be challenged, right? So, respectfully, of course, one of my biggest pet peeves is the amount of ego. Um, and I think that black males can be very egomaniacal just due to the fact that we have access to so little manhood that when the little bit of manhood that we have is threatened, we react real big because it's like this is all I got. It's like if you hungry and you got like one pea on your plate and somebody reach over try to snatch it, you like, "Rah, what the fuck is you doing? Don't touch my manhood. Don't play my fucking manhood. It's all I got. And it took all this shit away from me. And you gonna bring your ass over here and touch a little bit. If you don't get your ass the fuck away from me, go find your mama." You know what I mean? So like I'm just saying, like I recognize this. So in being mature and pushing for development, in many ways I have to lead by example, but I also have to play in the game, right? Because remember when I said, like, in order to go ham, right? In order to win the hearts, the attention and minds, because if you can't capture the attention, then you definitely won't capture the mind. And the amount of distractions that are in front of our people's faces, you have to find a way to stand out in all the noise. And unfortunately, typically, if people are talking so-called what they refer to as pro-black stuff, a lot of our community is like turned off by it. You know what I mean? Like as soon as you start talking that black stuff, they like, tune the fuck out. It's like a teenager. Like when you talking to them about responsibility and what they need to do, they tune that shit right out. Crickets. You know what I mean? So let me get into this Nelly Fuller real quick, because as I stated, that under the system of white supremacy, black males are conditioned for something other than manhood. When it was the slave system, we were conditioned to be slaves. Now that we exist within a different economic paradigm, they provide us roles that we can play that are acceptable roles to play within society. And I'll get into those. Maybe not on this podcast. I'll save that for episode 1. But ultimately, the goal is the end of our line. You know what I mean? That's the goal. So that when I talk about malignant development, I mean literally the development is for us to be deteriorated and decimated over time until we up out of this bitch. And if you look at the picture on the screen, I mean, like, this is an accurate reflection of what our youth are looking like, the generation of males that are coming behind us. So we have to, I'm a big proponent, and if you've heard me speak before, I say this analogy a lot. I don't believe in the concept of standing at the shoreline with a mop to try to stop the tide from coming in. For me, that's silly. If our people are out there in the ocean, then that means every night bodies are going to be coming in. So what's more wise for us to do is to find a high ground, find a high point, and build a lighthouse, i.e., an institution of knowledge, of insight, of light, so that those who are out there in the ocean can have some direction, right? Manhood is a system of what? Order, protection, and direction, right? So you can lead folks in so they don't have to crash against the rocks, and their dead bodies float up ashore. Because when you out there, you're in the matrix. You know what I mean? And when you're in the matrix, you're going to get wet. So let me go ahead and play this short clip from Dr. Nellie Fuller.
Every black person on the planet who has been exposed to white supremacy, and the assumption is every black person on the planet has been, even when they haven't been in contact with white people directly. They've been exposed to the white culture indirectly. White culture is about white supremacy. Now, what does white supremacy do? It teaches people of color that if you are a male, you cannot be a man, period. Not in the system of white supremacy. And you're not going to be treated like a man, ever. Now, you can walk around and think that you're a man, but that's between you and you, strictly between you and yourself, because no white person has an obligation, if you're a black male, to treat you like you are a man. And it's logical simply because in the system of white supremacy, it's impossible for a black male to be a man. It doesn't make any difference how old he gets or what he knows or what kind of connections. That can't be done. I just start with myself. I'm not eligible, not qualified to be a man. Why? Because I was born in captivity, that's why. When you're in captivity, when you're a prisoner of war, you are strictly that and nothing else, a prisoner of war, a victim of white supremacy. And you don't have another title. You can give yourselves all kinds of titles, which is why black people love.
I was just if you're watching the video, and not my audio listeners, I was just pulled off the ISIS papers by Dr. Francis Cress Welsing from the RBG War Library, because I wrote an essay that I dedicated to Dr. Francis Cress Welsing a few years back, and that essay was called "Overcoming Fear." And because Dr. Welsing is just so brilliant, and she's just so honest and in a loving way. She just says to you, "Baby, I know you're scared, but you're gonna have to stop being scared." She says, "Baby, I recognize that all of your pathological behavior is due to the fact that you engage in these things so that you can avoid facing what's looking at you in your face because you're afraid to look at it. And I understand you've been terrorized by it, baby, but if you want to live here on this planet, I'm going to need for you to man up." And this is Dr. Welsing talking to black men, talking to black males. I'm gonna do at some point, I promise you, put this on your calendars. I'm giving you this live thought right now. For 2022, I want to put together a Dr. Francis Cress Welsing symposium on black males. And I want to invite people who are serious about our condition and serious about um, resurrecting the state of black manhood. I want to bring us together. Depending on what variant we're on at that point, it may be virtual, but it might be in person. By the time that comes next year, we might be like at the Zeta variant by that point. But that's neither here nor there. But I just, I was listening to Dr. Nellie Fuller and just Dr. Francis Cress Welsing popped in my mind. I have a quote here on the screen. This is from Hakeem Mahabudi. This is from his book, Black Men, Obsolete, Single, Dangerous. And the quote says, "The destruction of black men starts at birth. It intensifies during boyhood, accelerates during the teen years, and finalizes in early adulthood." Again, he's literally laying out the malignant development of black males. Right? From birth, every system, institution, the entire social milieu that we interact or engage with is meant to destroy us because we represent a threat. And that's why, race, manhood, and power is It's just so necessary. This is a quote here from Asada Shakur. I love Mama Asada. You see her right. Spirit is always going to be here. Free Mama Asada. Let her come home from exile. Free all the political prisoners. But Asada Shakur, in her letter called To My People, this is a fierce warrior. She says here, I am a field nigga who is determined to be free by any means necessary. By that, I mean that I can never be free unless all of my people are free along with me. And by that, I mean that I have declared war on all forces that have raped our women, castrated our men, and kept our babies empty-bellied. Abibi Fahudie to Mama Asada. I appreciate your spirit. May your warrior spirit forever burn strong. May it ever light the path of liberation. May your example shine bright for the African woman who is looking for her way in this world. May your example of womanhood and of leadership shine bright within the global African community. Much love to Mama Asada. So in closing here, family, we're going to wrap up. This presentation today was a presentation on the 12-point buck theory of black male development. And I talked about how a 12-point buck is just so rare. To find a buck that has a rack that has the 6 points on each side is just rare because they're being hunted down. So it's the same thing with black men and black male development. To find a black man who is fully developed along each of these areas, it's just rare. But it's not impossible. Brother Amac, a brother in my manhood and character building workshop that we do every Thursday, as a part of the Cobra Calisthenics workshops that we do, that's focused on rebuilding manhood. He always says to me, Brother Omawale, we have to develop a system of African manhood. We have to develop it. We have to create it. And this is, a small contribution. There are lots of brothers making contributions. Right here, hold on one second. My brother, Baba Emotep, released a book, the second edition of a book that he wrote this year. And the book is called African Manhood in the 21st Century. We use this book as a required text in our Thursday night groups as a part of Cobra Calisthenics. And even when we're not exercising, right, when we stop exercising collectively, we're still going to get together every Thursday night as men to focus on our character, to focus on the resurrection of African manhood. Because without it, the entire black race is doomed. And manhood has been absent from the race for far too long. So these are my 12 points of restoration. And each night at the end of each episode, I'll end on one of these points just for my closing remarks. So the 12 points are mind, body, spirit, consciousness, character, community, family, finance, relationships, attitude, vision, and purpose. These are the 12 areas that we will be focusing on and uplifting black men on, helping us to grow together. I mean, the state of it's just, I just watched this year so many black men are tapping out in their 50s due to lifestyle diseases, the way that we eat, the amount of stress. I mean, Hakeem Mahabudi just said it, like everything. In the system of white supremacy, everything is designed to kill you, not just the police. Like everything is designed to kill you. So, brothers, tonight, what I want to close out on is I want to use vision. And I'm going to read a quote from Marcus Garvey, the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, that speaks to the need for vision, right? Because people without vision, right, we suffer. I think this is biblical, where they say something like, we suffer due to lack of vision or something like that. We've been dispossessed due to a lack of vision. I'm of the belief that you can only see as far back, or you can only see as far forward as you can see back. So I'm trying to propel myself and our people deep into the future. And that requires me to also look deep into the past to understand who I am. And I think this is a perfect way to close. Garvey has an essay in the Philosophies and Opinions, and it's Man, Know Thyself. And he says, for man to know himself is for him to feel that for him, there is no human master. For him, nature is his servant, and whatsoever he wills in nature, that shall be his reward. He's speaking that vision talk right now. What do you see? Do you see it? That's your reward, black man. Go get it. Fuck all them over there. They your enemies. This is war. You got to gird your loins. You got to get in shape. You got to get your mind right. You got to be like George Jackson and say that I refuse to be counted among the broken men. Not me. Not this African. You understand what I'm saying, black man? Let me keep reading here. He says, if he wills to be a serf or a slave, that shall he be. If he wills to be a real man in possession of things common to man, then he shall be his own sovereign. And that's what the Race, Manhood, and Power podcast is all about. How do we transform racially subjugated males into sovereign men? This is all about tapping into that sovereign man within. So until next time, family, Abibi Fahudie, and I'll be here every Monday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So tap in, lock in, and man up. Peace.
Yo, brother, why we climbing this mountain?
Because our ancestor Ake Khufu traveled thousands of miles as our ancestors took civilization from here all the way to what we call Kemet today, where the Arabs have invaded and ruled. And our ancestor Khufu and Narma, who opened the first dynastic period, said there must be a 26th dynastic period. Only way to get there is for Africans from around the world who care about our people, who hate our enemies, are willing to kill and destroy. To get there, they gotta climb this mountain and go back to their ancestors. So we gotta go.
We with you, brother.
Sitting at the foothills of the mountains of the moon, staring at the horizon, the war is coming soon. Sitting, thinking and contemplating about black power moves. Still gotta take the time to watch the flowers bloom while you saving up dough. Trying to buy a car, I'm investing in gold bars and trying to buy a farm. The elder barber told me you could never be a man if you can't grow your own food, so buy your own land. I'm building my own home with my own hands, buying an arsenal to supply the whole fam. I'm going back to the motherland, reconnect with the brothers and bring the blocker that's stretch to crack it like rubber bands. I'm in Uganda in the city of Kampala, talking black economics and how to make $1 million. Made it to the top of the mountain and saw the landscape and shaking with my words cause I'm firm just like a handshake. Trackers want to try to stop the movement like a handbrake. It's the ancestral spirits that gave this man strength. African insurrection music. United Front is the vanguard of the movement. Yeah, my ancestral spirit is talking to me. My ancestral spirit is talking to me. My ancestral spirit is talking to me. My ancestral spirit is talking to me.
The resurrection of African people. Of the 26th dynastic period. The extermination of the white race. The resurrection of the Africans. Nobody can stop us.
Sitting at the top of the mountain, beating the djembe. Thinking about the brothers on the block like the Kimbe. Training, deep meditation like a sensei. Rocking dashikis made out of kente. Feeling proud, looking down at the clouds. Always standing on my square, never dropping my crown. Building with the elders, 1 foot in the now. It's my duty to protect the black woman and child. Yeah, ready to brawl like I'm a Carl Cabral. My body is my temple, Taj Mahal. See, my mind is the monument, words are the documents containing the wisdom to teach the populace about the white devils, the European apocalypse. Grabbing machetes for me to chop them with. Got the black 9, yeah, and I'm cocking it. Loaded with hollow tips, ready for me to pop them with. My ancestral spirits is talking to me. My ancestral spirits is talking to me. My ancestral spirits is talking to me. My ancestral spirits is talking to me.
It takes over for God. It takes over for the people. It takes over for the ancestors. There's only one person left in the end.
That's
the
Bomani.
Bomani.
Yeah.
They take you to the finish line.
Made it to the top of the mountain and got initiated into a brotherhood of stone cold liberators. Took an oath, no way to be infiltrated, and choose my weapon, the black or the nickel plated. I break this oath, may I die a horrible death. My ancestors made it guide my steps, and I'ma fight like I'm the last one left. My heart too big, it may collapse my chest. With the spirit of Desaline, I'm clean. No weed and nicotine, no cocaine, crack, no dope with promethazine. This cracker is a demon, but you acting like a diva. Black woman is a goddess, almighty queen of Sheba. Just try to live without her, that'll make you a believer. Like my action, keep me balanced with the scale like a Libra. Gotta be a good example, brothers see me as a leader. But don't try to twist the meaning if you see me in the beamer, cause you know I got the heater. Putting that work in, sweating by the leader, cause I'm shaking and I'm fiending just to hear a cracker screaming, begging and pleading for his life. Then I poke him with this knife and leave him leaking. I'm fully dedicated to African liberation, and I'm patient cause I know it takes time to build a nation. I'm fully dedicated to African liberation, and I'm patient cause I know it takes time to build a nation. My ancestral spirits is talking to me. My ancestral spirits is talking to me. My ancestral spirits is talking to me. My ancestral spirits is talking to me.
If you stand here at the mountains of the moon, you should feel, really blessed. Your entire journey and tour has been a journey of blessing, standing on holy ground. And you're right inside the pyramid. The original pyramid is this one. You're standing on the pyramid. And there are actually 3 of them. To tell you the 3 kings. The 3 kings. Now, underneath this pyramid is a lake shaped like the shape of Africa. And what that tells you with this lake shaped like Africa is to say, as you remember the pyramid, as you remember classical African history, as you remember your great achievement, just to know that you are doing it in the name of Africa and for the greatest good of African people.
Ashe.